lands of the First Nations has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. In particular, I acknowledge the history, spirituality, and culture of the territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, the people of the Three Fires, known as Ojibwe, Dawa, and Potawatomi Nation, and further gives thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and Chippewas of Miwok, known collectively as the Saugeen and Ojibwe Nation, the traditional peoples of this land. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to this area, as well as the contribution of the Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous people whose ancestors shared these lands and waters. We live with respect for each other on this land, and with peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples, which. Prior to today's meeting, the board met in closed sessions to review and discuss the matters that, in their opinion, fell under Section 35 of the Services Act, and as per the Sound Police Service Board bylaw number 2019-1, Section 19.1, closed items. Let's move on for a motion for the approval of the agenda. Joe, thank you. Seconder, Steve. All in favor? Good. Declaration of conflict of interest arising out of the minutes and matters listed on the agenda. Hearing none. Presentations, deputations, and public questions here. And Craig, I'll let you introduce the presenters today.
Okay, thank you very much. So this morning we're having a presentation from our communications people, and Amber and Kendall are here to make a presentation. And this is one that was done for the Citizens Police Academy as well, or a portion of it was. It's been modified from that, but just to provide you a bit of an update on things that go on downstairs. So Amber, Kendall, go ahead. Thanks very much for coming up today.
Yeah, thanks for having us. So our presentation. There we go. So the Owen Sound Emergency Communication Center. Ignore the date on there, that's from the Academy. So this is just a little bit about what makes a dispatcher. This was added for the Citizens Police Academy, but we like to joke that we need 5 hands, 1 for answering the phone, 2 for typing, answering the radio, grabbing a cup of coffee all at the same time. So that kind of speaks to the multitasking that we have to do. And at any given time, you can go from doing 1 thing to doing 6 things all at the same time. And especially in our communication center, as I'm sure you're aware, we have a lot of different tasks throughout the day, a lot of services that we look after. So there's just usually a lot going on at any given time. You have to be able to read maps, listen to any type of call that comes our way. We never expect it. As soon as the line rings, we don't know what's happening on the other end. So we kind of always have to be prepared for what's going to come our way and be able to have patience, be calm, choose the appropriate resources to send, and proceed to make sure that everybody is safe at the end of the day, whether that's the public or the police officers, firefighters, everybody. So if you want to add to that, cool. Yeah, skim over this bit. Okay. So we're the primary PSAP for Grey County, Bruce County, Cobourg, Port Hope, and some of the Northumberland County areas. So that means when the 911 call is first made, we're the first response. So we're the ones that answer 911. Do you need police, fire, or ambulance when it comes over on 911? So anybody in any of those counties, they're going to hear from us first. They'll indicate whether they need police, fire, or ambulance. We don't dispatch for ambulance, so automatically that gets what we call downstreamed to a central ambulance communication center or a CAC. So typically most of them that we get go to London CAC and they dispatch ambulance from there. If it's for the fire department or for police, we always ask, where are you? So that helps determine what service. Either we'll keep it if it's one of our areas or we'll transfer it usually to open. These are all of the services that we look after. So for police, we have Owen Sound Police, Saugeen Shores, Hanover, West Grey, Cobourg, and Port Hope. So those are all of the 911 calls for those areas and the non-emergency lines. And then as for our fire departments, we've got Bruce County, Perth County, Grey County, and Huron County. The majority of the stations in those counties. So these are the breakdown of all of the stations that we have. Including police, it's 52 agencies that we look after. Our most recent is all of Huron County, or the majority of Huron County. We just took over their dispatch services in October of last year. And then Perth County, I guess we've had them for about a year now. Yeah.
Then up at the top is kind of just some stats about estimated population that we service now is about 372,000 people with all of our services.
And this picture, the Intertownship Fire Department brought us breakfast from their fire department fundraiser. And then when we took over Huron County, a few of us went down to visit the Goderich Fire Department. We met some of the captains, they showed us the trucks. We like to establish relationships and a working relationship with the services that we don't usually see on a day-to-day, whereas the officers in Owen Sound will see them every day. But at Goderich, we're not going to run into them on a daily basis. So we like to go out of our way to get to know the services that we look after. So these are our calls for service, 2021 versus 2022. You'll see the police, it's gone down about 6,000. And we did lose Dryden. So Dryden went OPP in February of last year. So that would account for a big drop in 911 calls because we didn't take any calls for the Dryden or surrounding areas anymore. The total 911 calls stayed roughly the same within 12 points, 12 calls from 2021 to 2022.
Fire went up quite a bit, but we did take on probably 8 new services in between there.
Yeah.
I would say.
That would account for Perth and Huron.
Most of Huron.
Mm-hmm. And these are our calls per hour over 2022. So you'll see the dip around 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and then they start to build throughout the day and then drop off as you get into the evening. So I find it's always kind of interesting to see what our busiest times of day are in terms of 911 calls. And ththese are our 2022 calls for service per service. So Owen Sound has by far the most. Coburg with second, which is kind of similar to Saugeen Shores. I guess Saugeen Shores would be second there. And then the smaller areas with these less calls for service. In terms of calls for service in Owen Sound, for January 2022 with January 2023, I believe the calls have gone up 8% from last year, January. So 8% higher this year, which is interesting. The factors that may be, I don't know. But they have increased so far this year. In terms of how 911 works, when you call 911, depending on whether you're calling from a cell phone or a landline, if it's a cell phone, it's going to connect you to your closest tower to where you are, depending on who your provider is. And then from where that tower is, it's going to connect you to the PSAP that you're going to reach. So when I was talking about the primary PSAP, that's us. So if you called 911, you hit a tower in Owen Sound, it's going to come to us where we then disperse where your call needs to go or keep it for ourselves if that's the service that you require. If you call from a landline, that's always going to come into us with your home address, your name, and your phone number. So that's why in terms of 911, a landline is always the best course to call 911, because if it's a hang up, if there's any type of medical distress where you can't speak or anything like that, right away, we're going to know the address where you are that call 911. Whereas for a cell phone, we get your GPS coordinates, so your lat and long. That can be anywhere from a 1 meter radius up to kilometers, depending on how good your cell phone service is and how good of a connection you have to the tower. So it's a bit trickier sometimes to really narrow down your location. We've had, even in the last couple shifts that we've had, people that are having a stroke and can't communicate what's happening. We just hear an open line. So which kind of brings us, we have a slide in here. So abandoned and no voice, we always treat them as an emergency until all efforts have been exhausted to confirm that. So whether that comes from, we usually listen in on the line first to kind of listen for any background noises, people talking, any signs of breathing or anything like that. I can't speak for you, but I'm sure you've had this as well, where we'll have an open line, we'll just hear either the TV or somebody breathing but can't speak, just some mumbling. So in that case, we're heightened to the fact that there's something going on that somebody can't speak about. So in those cases, we're always going to try and call the phone back, hoping to get an answer. If not, then we begin calling for subscriber information. So when a 911 call comes in from a cell phone, as I said, we don't get the name or the address of who that cell phone belongs to. So we have the ability to call the phone provider and see who the phone's registered to and what the address is on their account. So that gives us somewhere to start in terms of sending an officer to the residence, just to confirm what's going on and then going from there. So any open line, we're never automatically assuming it's an accident or a pocket dial. We get tons of them, but we can never assume that it's a pocket dial because a lot of chances are there could be somebody in medical distress on the other line. Or even like a domestic situation where, yeah, do you want to speak to that?
Oh, I was just gonna say, when in terms of speaking about a landline, if you are in some sort of domestic situation, a lot of times people will pick up, call 911 and hang up the phone. And like she said, we automatically get all your information. And when we do hear those little inklings, we can automatically send an officer that way while we do the calling back and trying to speak with someone to confirm that anything is going on. Or sometimes you'll get a lot of hangups. You can get several hangups from the same phone. And that could just be someone in a fight with someone picking up the receiver, picking it up, hanging it up. And keeping with the landline, what we can do is we call it locking the line. So what we do is we try to bring back your landline. And now every time you pick up the receiver and try to hang it up, we're still going to be there until we release it. So once we release the line, you can then release and put the phone down. But until then, every time you pick the receiver up and say hello, it's going to be us on the other end of the phone.
The captain transfer. Yeah, so this chart here, 2022 and 2021, for the totals, those are the amount of 911 calls that we've received. Again, whether that be in an area that we cover or one of the surrounding counties. And then so kept is the ones that we keep ourselves because they fall in an area for our service. Either Owen Sound Police, Saugeen Shores Police, Coburg, Port Hope, or one of our fire areas. So those are the ones that we keep for ourselves to dispatch the appropriate resources for whatever they require. Transferred is what we also refer to as a downstream. So those are the ambulance calls in OPP area. For a fire department that's not one that we look after, those are then transferred or downstreamed to the appropriate service. And so when those are transferred, we connect them. We always wait for two-way voice contact. So that would be the other agency picking up, asking what is your emergency, and then the caller communicating to them what's happening. So we make sure that there's two-way, and then we release the line. Sometimes, for whatever reason, if a connection's lost, the other agency will answer and there won't be somebody on the line. And then in that case, we would provide all of the information that we have to make sure that they get the Annie Alley. So the Annie Alley is what automatically comes with the 911 call. So it's the automatic number information and the automatic location information. So we make sure we relay the location and the phone number so they have something to either call them back or whatever their policy may be to follow up with that 911 call. So no answer, no voice. I guess that actually went down in 2022. Now that people are learning more about the options on smartphones for the automatically calling 911, people, I'd assume based on those numbers, are learning that they can shut off their emergency automatic. So with some smartphones, if you hit the lock button a couple times, it'll set off an alarm and then it'll automatically call 911. So we see a lot of those in the summer. People putting their phone in a cup holder. That hard ring on the cup holder in a lawn chair is the exact same height as that button. So not a lot of people knew that. And for those calls that we received, we try to do some education with them as well, saying this is what happened. You can disable that service if you'd like. You can keep it on. Just be cognizant that that is coming in using police resources, dispatch resources to follow up to confirm safety. So a lot of people are learning that that's what can happen. We've seen that update now with the new smartwatches, the Apple. A lot of people skiing, if they fall down or take a hard fall, the watch can detect that a fall has occurred. And so that will automatically call 911. It comes to us saying that this Apple Watch user has been in a serious car accident. And then it will be an open line. So it will just be like an open mic on their watch, so we can hear what's going on in the background. More often than not, we get them for Blue Mountain because we take that area for 911 calls. If it's on a ski hill, they likely fell down the hill. But because we can never assume that, we're always, especially in the case of Blue Mountain, we're downstreaming them to the OPP Communication Center in Aurelia. So that's their responsibility to follow up with that now. But we never just disconnect and say, oh, somebody was skiing and took a tumble. We never do that. Always transfer it to OPP. It's their responsibility to follow up with that. But that's one thing that happens with Apple. Unfortunately, it comes across, say, a serious car accident, but it was going at a certain speed and then it came to a sudden stop. So that's how it comes across to us. No callback. Do you know what that one means?
I'm going to assume the no callback is, so as she said, we do have some sort of discretion. So once we have exhausted all of our options and we do make voice-to-voice contact, if we've determined that everything they're telling us matches what we're seeing on the screen, their phone number, their location, sometimes we can ask our cell phone provider just to confirm as well. Once all of that is confirmed and we know it's not an emergency, we can disconnect the call and we don't have to send an officer to follow up with them. So no callback, I would assume that's when we stay on the phone, they eventually do come to the phone and say, oh, hi. And they've realized they've called 911, we've spoken to them about everything and then determined that it's an accidental call to 911.
Mm-hmm. And that's where, in this point here, where dispatchers must pay close attention to tone, voice inflection, what people are saying. We really get used to picking out certain inflections of people's voices or their tone or background noise and using all of that to determine what the situation may be. So when we get a 911 call, this is one of our screens. This is what it looks like. We get this information from Bell. So when I was referring to Annie Alley, so on here, this one came from a landline and service class up here, it says COM. So that's commercial. So you'll see here, the name is Dollarama, 223 7th Avenue in Hanover, and then telephone number is their phone number. So when they have a landline, that's what we get. So if it's a hang up, we know that we're going to be sending resources to Dollarama at that address in Hanover. And while that's happening, we're going to be trying to call the phone number back to speak with somebody, see what happened, what's going on. And then over here, where it says we've got Owen Sound Police, Tilsonburg Fire, London CAG. This is showing us which service to downstream it to if it needs to be transferred. So this has updated. We now look after Hanover Fire. It was done at Tilsonburg and now it's us. So this has changed and it would say Owen Sound Bureau. So Owen Sound Burr, right here, Owen Sound Police, because we look after Hanover Police. And then here is London CAC. So if somebody here needed an ambulance, we know from this that we're sending them to London to get an ambulance dispatched there. And with service class, it'll show us if it's a payphone or if it's a cell phone or a residential landline. And we also have the ability to text with 911. So Bell has an app it's Text Blue is what we refer to it as. So Bell has given us the ability to text somebody. So one of the main reasons we use this is with what 3 words. So if somebody's not sure of their location, what 3 words has the globe mapped in 3 meter by 3 meter boxes. And every box has 3 words associated with it. So in order for somebody to figure out what their 3 words are, we would text them the link so they can bring it up on their phone. It's right there, very easy and user-friendly for them to use. They just click the link and it will bring up the website for what 3 words. And right away, it'll display their 3 words. So we'd ask them, what are your 3 words? We'd enter that into our computer and we'd have a general idea of where they are. So it doesn't track each person. It doesn't track your phone, your location information does not stay with what 3 words. It just tells us that you are in that named box at that given time when you're accessing it from your phone. So if somebody I know we've had it, I had some lost tubers. People were tubing down the Saugeen River in West Grey Police area. They had no idea where they were. It was starting to pour down rain. They think that they passed where their vehicle was parked. They didn't really know what to do or where they were because you don't have road signs on a river. So we used what 3 words? I texted them the link. They clicked it. I saw exactly where they were. I knew where to tell the fire department to go because I zoomed out on Google Maps, went to the satellite view. I saw there's a little trail that comes off of this concession. Go in there and you'll see them. So what 3 words is a really great tool for lost hikers, tubers, what have you. We get a lot of that up on the peninsula in like the national parks up there. People get lost hiking, don't know where to go. We bring them up on what 3 words, and it's very easy to direct assistance to them using that app. So Bell has given us a great tool to text that link to people. This is just an example of what the chat would look like. When you receive a text message through TextBlue, it's not a normal phone number that you can have a conversation with whenever you want. It's a generic set of numbers that once we end the chat on our end, it's done. You can't text that number constantly. So this one, the black box would be what we have sent to them. So that's just an example, 911, what is your emergency? They texted back, need police at 456 7th Street West. And then we had a conversation about what's going on there. So it's a great resource for people who can't safely talk on the phone even, or anything like that. And it's kind of replacing the TTY, which is for like a TTY machine for deaf or hard of hearing people, is kind of going in the way of more advanced technology instead of an old machine to type a message to 911. So this is, I guess I got ahead of myself here. This is the example of what 3 words. So you'll see up here, this is what we see on our end. So the sprawl resist residency is the 3 words associated with this spot here, just outside from the grotto. So looking at that, we know just go in past Mar Lake and you'll find who you're looking for. So this is a really great call that we've had recently. I will let.
Absolutely, this is the best part. So I'll give you a little background into this. This was back in November. Kendall was on the phone. So this came in as an ambulance call to 911. And typically, once it's established that it's just a medical call, Kendall has the ability or normal process is just to punch that through to ambulance because it's their call. If ambulance wants the police and the fire department to respond, they'll call us back and let us know, sort of thing. Kendall heard a whole lot of panic going on here. She did punch it through to ambulance, but she chose to stay on the line in the background and just listen to hear what was going on. So what's happening here is there's a woman that came to, she was actually visiting the hospital because her husband had a stroke recently. He's been released, but still being treated. They end up down at Swiss Chalet. They get some chicken, and because of his medical condition, he's choking in the car and he's basically dying in the car next to her while this is going on. She calls into 911 trying to get help for him. It does go to ambulance in London. You'll probably get very frustrated listening to the ambulance response here because it's very drawn out and I don't know where you are, and the woman keeps getting more and more frustrated as this goes on. But meanwhile, in the background, Kendall is already looking. She has found Constable James Giles, who is literally a block away from this. She has him going. He's there in less than 2 minutes, and basically he saves the guy's life, doing CPR and all that sort of thing. The guy's still alive. He spent Christmas with his family. All of this wouldn't have happened if Kendall didn't do what she did and if we didn't have a local car there. So just understand that part of this is because the ambulance person is in London, they're not familiar with Owen Sound. So they're kind of doing, I don't know where it is, so I don't know where that is. So you'll hear the frustration in the woman's voice, and probably only play it for a couple of minutes until Kendall jumps in and she actually comes on the line because this woman is absolutely panicking and just kind of, I've got somebody there and, oh, I see the policeman coming. And so it's a really good call to just understand what goes on. So I actually came back into, I heard about it, came back into Dr. Kendall because you're on. She's like, oh my God, I just have to. Anyway.
Yeah, it's a great example of situational awareness that Kendall had. Speaking of the multitasking, always paying attention to everything that's going on at any given moment and caught Constable Giles at the perfect time.
You probably stop there. That's when James shows up and he manages to save the guy here, but yeah, so that wouldn't have happened if Kendall hadn't stayed on the line, because ambulance, I think, is about 7.5 minutes or something before they actually have an ambulance on scene. James is there in 1:40 or something. I don't know how long you can hold your breath, but it's not 8 minutes. Had she not done that, this guy would be dead. That's the short version of it, because he probably wouldn't have lasted 8 minutes when he's not breathing. So, I mean, that's, again, as Amber said, that's the intuition that kicked in there, that Kendall stayed on the line and heard it and was able to do all this stuff in the background with 1,000 911 calls coming in per hour and the comm center sort of thing, other work to do and that sort of thing. So, one of the other things, when we presented this, we actually have Richard Thomas was in our Citizens Police Academy class. So I just kind of made the comment. I said, you know, a number of years ago, we looked at an OPP costing here. Had that gone through, the OPP dispatcher would have been in Aurelia taking that call, and the London ambulance person would have been in London. So we wouldn't have anybody on there that knows where they are, and we'd still be asking what the street address is 8 minutes later. So local matters, and it's a really good given this guy's alive, because the local dispatcher that knows exactly where he is, and you've got a local police service that is right around the corner. So that's why is there, and Kendall did an awesome job and saved the guy's life. So
Fantastic.
So that brings us to the end. We kind of did a very condensed Coles Notes version of everything we do. If you have any questions, I guess now's the time.
the longer version was very well received by the Citizens Police Academy. Yeah, it was very well done. there's a very complex fire call that was taken off there to the Legion and Pepper. That if you listen to it, oh my goodness, because there's so many different page outs for all the different, it's all over the place. So
Will there be a scenario difference once the NG 911 is able to be on board? Would that affect what the outcome of that call, or at least the?
In terms of getting like this one, we were very lucky that with the 911 call, we had a very good Latin Long location. We knew exactly on the map that she was dropping right at the corner where Swiss Chalet is. NG 911 is definitely going to improve the chances of that happening in the future for other calls where we may have a 17-kilometer radius. And if she says she's in Swiss Chalet, it might be harder to pick that up. But NG 911 will definitely help us narrow down location in terms of, especially if his wife wasn't with him and it was just him, and we get that 911 call and he's choking, he can't speak, we're going to have a better chance of knowing where he is once NG 911 is in play.
Thank you.
I'm curious, so the ambulance person obviously is having, struggling to figure out where this is. Does the Alleys or the lat long stuff not transfer over to them when it goes?
Yep. They use the same CAD system as we do, which we're kind of lucky in that sense when we do have fire calls, for example, where it's a random farmer's field in the middle of nowhere. We do have that normally with the ambulance where they get the same drop, the same lat long, the same uncertainty as we do. So
Why does it
that's
take
what
her a
I'm-
couple of minutes to figure out where they are? Do we have any idea? Like, is
ambulance
there
has a lot of
delay?
different protocols about, they follow what's called SOG questions, so operating guideline questions, and they have to go by that list of questions where we kind of have the freedom to ask what we deem the conversation is going as, because it can go a lot of different ways, where they kind of have to ask, what's your cross streets? What's the closest intersection to you? Where I'm sitting on the other end going, there's one speciality, I know it's out. Google it.
I can't speak to why ambulance has the SOGs that they do,
Yeah.
but at the beginning of every call, they'll ask the address. I mean, every time I've been out to eat, I never know the address of the restaurant that I'm at, but they ask the address, what's your closest major intersection, and all of that. A lot of people don't know that, and they can't be expected to need to know that. So ambulance always asks those questions, whereas for us, they say they're at Swiss Chalet, that matches exactly on the map where they say they are. Chances are they're at Swiss Chalet where the map is showing. So we kind of have a more personable approach to asking the questions and treating people like they're people instead of just checking off the questions that we need to ask. It's kind of a more common sense approach to answering the phone. When somebody's in crisis especially, it's a lot easier. You're just talking on a normal note, person to person, instead of I need to know the intersection that you're at. It goes over better with people in my experience.
It's very structured and it's the first step of the medical process of their call taking, because that's very structured. So they know, are they choking, are they breathing, they go through all the standard things, all those cases. The one question I would have is, that's a medical emergency that I would suggest would probably be a tiered response call regardless. But she's so caught up in trying to figure out the location that there's been no callback or no tiering being done, which is fortunate. Kendall was there.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there that day, but it's my understanding that they did eventually call to tier the fire department as well. But Constable Giles had been on scene for.
We dispatched the fire department
Minutes.
as well, so I kind of said when they called on the phone, I'm like, well,
There.
what are they needed for now? Because like the officer's already been there, you guys are apparently 2 minutes away, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Amber, Kendall, thanks very much. Great job, great presentation, and I know it was educational for everybody here. So thanks.
Got another free 6 hours. We could go over the rest. I know we could talk about it forever.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. I'll grab that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Rich will be coming back up in about 10 minutes.
Okay. I was hoping we had lots.
No, they were up here during the middle of the,
I noticed.
yeah, that's,
One of the things we did at CPA, we just did a little bit quick math, if I'm not mistaken, by the comm center in a year, divided by days and that sort of thing. No reason. That was 3 people answering the phone that, or 4 people answering the phone that way. It's kind of impressive when you look at that, going, holy cow, that's busy.
110 of Saturday night. Awesome. It's busy. Yeah. Right, back to the agenda. Confirmation of the minutes in public session held on January 25th, 2022. All right, second. All in favor? Carried. Any business arising out of the public sections on January 2023? Hearing none. Correspondence received. We did receive an email from Solicitor General's office that Ryan Tensioner has been named to Inspector General of Policing. And that will be effective March 27th, 2023. As some of you probably know, Ryan's been the Executive Director and Chief of Staff of the Toronto Police Services Board since 2018. Some of the most important staff changes, organization's history, including the areas of governance, modernization, and some reform. Moving on to item number 9, Chairman's report. I guess I'm going to have to switch hats here. It's actually a report, my report, as a member of the Ontario Association of Service Boards as director. So on February 1st, Lisa Darling was able to meet with the Justice Policy Committee on behalf of the Ontario Association of Service Board membership. Things they talked about regarding bail reform was better training for justice of the peace, better metrics for justice of the peace, judicial administration and judicial personnel in the justice system itself, more rigor around sureties and surety releases, and more resources, both technology and human, to support monitoring and compliance checks of those out on bail with strict enforcement conditions. Also, the Ontario Board has entered into a funding agreement with the Ministry of Solicitor General to assist training designed to support the mandatory ministry training coming out of the new CSPA and any transitional support for police services. The OSPSB will be hiring 2 part-time contract positions, a curriculum developer, as well as a training officer and 1 engagement officer. These positions have been posted and actually closed in January, and they're working on the process right now to do the interviews and put those people in place. Other work over the past few months have concluded is they're working with the CAPG to develop shared resources and develop joint online and in-person learning opportunities. Develop draft agendas for the spring conference, which is coming up. We'll picture that later on. Lisa Darling is now representative on an expert panel for Trent University for the micro-credential certificate in senior police leadership. Completed submission to the Ministry on draft regulations on January 2nd, February 4th. And work to be done on updating the OSPSB website, providing more access to materials and training. And I think there's other tips for that a little later on too. The HR committee has updated the board on the process for hiring 2 contract trainers, and the ethics committee and on January 15th to review correspondence and develop the mandate of the committee and still work for the advocacy consultants. This committee will meet every 2 weeks. Just as a general reminder, the OSPSB general meeting will be on May 30th to June 1st. The theme this year is collaborating for community safety. And if you wish to attend, please let Kayla know, and she can make arrangements for the registration and accommodation as well. Kayla's on the website. Okay. I think the other thing too that Kayla sent to you on February 9th was an email from Jennifer Williams, who's she's a membership coordinator at OSPSB. And it was just a reminder for everyone to set up their accounts on the OSPSB member portal. If you haven't got around to it, you probably should, because this is a site where all of the training material is made available to you. And if we get emails in the future, we'll probably just say, go to the website and your accounts and set up an account there. It'll give you a lot of information. We play around with it, go exploring on it. There's a lot of information. I didn't know this was it. I've been at it for a year and playing it before. It's a lot of information available. All right, moving on to item number 10 under governance. We talked about this at our last meeting. We're updating our bylaws and policies, and the purpose of this is to try and come back with the bylaws and policies and procedures that are up to date. We generally working with the state president, who previously worked with the ministry, and who's now does work for 6 other municipalities with reports in the area. And there will be new policies based on ministry guidelines and taking a look at our bylaws just to make sure that they're in line. There's about 24 bylaws and about 94 policies that need to review. And there's some areas where our language needs to be updated and things like that. What we'll probably do is send those to make available some policies and bylaws to you so that you can review them, and we'll probably put it on the agenda for the March meeting to finalize the approval on them. We have readings coming, so we just break.
Come on in.
Matthew.
And the 9 bars, friendship brownies, and dark bars, black bean brownies, and yeah. 1 white chocolate chip cookie and a white chewy bar.
Wow, that's a lot of selections.
Yeah.
But I guess you go first. I'll take one of those.
And then it goes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have an enamel bar, please.
Absolutely.
Same thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I wasn't looking. Yeah, well,
That's all. I've been away from that. I would agree with you.
Very good, you're so.
Good.
There's 10, there's 15, there's 17. Thank you. Thank you.
You can grab it. Right here. I'll keep
There's 10.
Like fancy name tags too.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
Have a nice day now.
You too.
She's a black shade. And a brown as well.
I bet you never thought I'd get involved with this making that.
No, I've got to stay away from it.
It's all sugar free.
Yeah, it's on cigarette.
Probably $6.
Been with the sugar in it. Fun.
There's your drink.
Thank you.
Thank you. No? Have any $3? Drink. Okay.
Thank you. Pecan tart bar. Put it together.
All right.
Yeah.
I got last time.
There you go.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you. Coming.
Yeah.
Great one. See you later. Nice talking. Bye, brother. Go lead, Scott. Thank you very much. You guys have a good week.
That's gonna be more. Yeah.
Thanks for the meeting. And this will finish off the governance. We'll start a report from.
That's why we don't need that.
Go. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Starting off with the criminal investigation prevention drug report. There's a couple of sexual assaults on here from the month of January. You'll notice in both cases they are insufficient evidence to proceed. Sexual assaults is one of those interesting areas where we often have reports coming in from agencies that have a duty to report and that sort of thing, but in many cases, we have to have a cooperative victim and able to proceed with the investigation. So the first case was reported to us from a 14-year-old female sexual assault investigation. Did not participate in the investigation, so insufficient evidence to proceed. You've seen this other fraud a few times on here. It actually dates back to 2021, where local resident at a publisher's clearinghouse fraud where $63,000 basically passed hands to the fraudsters. That's been a very long ongoing investigation because of the work that has to be done on it. So the production orders, which is sort of the equivalent of a search warrant, has been obtained and submitted to 5 different financial institutions. So a lot of work goes into just trying to get some background information, see where the money ended up going and where the transfers were made and that sort of thing. So often the banks can be some time in getting that information back to us, so they do tend to be more drawn out investigations, but it is. We picked up a new investigation regarding a local business who determined that they had some concerns with a former bookkeeper while they were an employee. So again, ongoing investigation, waiting documents, supporting documents to be coming in from the complainant. We had a sexual assault transferred to us from Collingwood OPP. Victim reported he was sexually assaulted while a resident in Owen Sound, where he was bitten by another male. Investigation resulted in the 61-year-old Owen Sound man being charged with sexual assault. We're continuing to investigate a assault from 2022, October, where a victim reported to police she was pushed down a flight of stairs by a suspect. She sustained serious injuries, including fractures to 2 vertebrae. Investigations ongoing as well. Another sexual assault that I mentioned earlier, referred to us by Bruce Grayfeld, Child and Family Services. Again, we have a victim that is being cooperative in that case and will provide a statement to police who participate in the investigation. Drug Enforcement Criminal Intelligence Unit assisted locating and arresting an individual wanted for charges pending from OSPS Project Winter. That was our drug project that occurred through early December. I believe that is the last of the people that we were looking to round up from that project. So that is complete with the arrests now. We had the repeat offender and parole enforcement squad here, assisted by our members in locating a 38-year-old Tilsonburg man wanted for drug offenses. The arrest was completed. 17-year-old female, unfortunately, dealt with a sudden death towards the end of January, believed to be a drug overdose. Waiting toxicology results from that. So we are just in January, and possibly the first week of February, we 2 for sure, and we suspected the third one being drug overdose death. So even though we saw a bit of a decline last year, 2022, we're not having a good first month. We could have as many as 3 right in around the first month of the year. So in total for last year, we did 6 where we know of. So that's kind of a concerning start to our year with respect to overdose deaths. And that is the second one that's listed on there, just below that. 33-year-old female at her residence, again, suspected overdose. CIB assisted with a missing person investigation through uniform, located by Uniform Patrol, and breach parole condition mail again by the rope squad. Request, and that mail was not located, but some information was passed on to them. The remainder of the report refers to our MHART statistics and training meetings and other things that took time away from our criminal investigations branch through the month. And at the bottom, we just list our drug overdose information there. I believe probably for next month, we'll have that up to 3 with the third and the first of the year. Pending information on that. Whatever else happens for the remainder of the month here. And just our stats from the last couple of years with relation to drug overdoses. Absent any questions, let's CIB and drugs. Move on to the auxiliary unit. December obviously is our big month for the auxiliary, but in January, focused our efforts on getting back out on patrol for ride-alongs. We had just about all of our auxiliary members completing ride-alongs for the month of January, totaling 60 hours of auxiliary time, just on ride-alongs alone, but the total number of hours given by the unit was 122. They participated in the Scotiabank Hockey Day in Canada event on January 21st, and we're at the Harrison Park promoting the Sound Police service while engaging the community during the festivities that occurred as part of the Hockey Day. And just a picture there, with respect to some of the things that they did. We have an active auxiliary recruiting process that is now closed, and we're actually starting interviews in about 2 hours. So we have the first of our interview candidates. We're hoping to get 4 or 5 new auxiliary members out of that, because over the last year, we've had a number of resignations and people that just didn't keep up their membership as a result of COVID, which kind of shut things down for 2 years. So we're just kind of getting our numbers back up and looking forward to a busy summer. That's the report. Core, of course, Core is actually a refreshing report, because if you look at the very first number there, foot patrol hours, so almost 110 hours of foot patrol. So that is directly in relation to some of our response to our citizen survey, and also the start of our new business planning process. We know that there's definitely going to be a focus on more visibility in the downtown. So typically we were running 10 to 20 hours of foot patrol between a new focus for Core and a new sergeant taking over in January. That focus has really come through, and we're very pleased to see that number of hours that's been put in there. As you read through the report, whether it's luck or coincidence, but the Core units actually managed to do some really great arrests just by being downtown, and certain things have happened. So I'll get to those in a bit. Just in terms of community partners, they attended down at Reach, as you recall from reading or from seeing our recruiting video, the reach participants actually sort of started in a section of our reach video. So Core went down and actually did the premier event down at Reach, and other clients were very pleased to see themselves on our recruiting video. So that was a good day. Some work's been done with the 2 high schools in respect to Core's presence and the role they play at the high schools. Met with the new executive director down at Safe and Sound, and doing some additional foot patrols in the area to monitor some of the concerns. They have a concern with some neighbors down there that they continue to have problems with. Some extra attention in that Safe and Sound. They just listed most of the foot patrol locations. The majority of it is down in the River District. Did some assistance with the CIB and drug unit. 40 hours because we have block training that happens in January. We end up using Core to have to assist to backfill some of those platoons to allow some of the members to attend block training. So 40 hours was given there. Several investigations that were done by Core, mischief under $5,000 downtown Core from a front window display intentionally smashed. This was one of those cases where Core was down there already, quickly located the rest of the suspect nearby. He offender in the downtown Core and was remanded into custody. Again, doing proactive foot patrol at a local grocery store when they observed an attempt theft in progress. PC Boyle was able to arrest a female for attempt theft under $5,000. Also wanted by us for 5 separate arrest warrants in addition. And Core assisted with the arrest of a wanted male on Canada warrant and transported man to Chatsworth. Right program was done. Core also assisted in the Lucky Day in Canada event. And Core also, all members of Core completed their block training through the month of January. So again, that 110 hours of foot patrol on top of everything else they did was very impressive. Glad to see that. That's my reports.
Okay. Now, just a question, I'm sure everybody wants to know. Talking about Core, were they involved in recent bank robbery?
So I can talk about that.
Oh, okay.
With my front line.
Okay, sure.
No, they were about they were in a previous. Yeah, the robbery at store down actually.
Circle K.
With the Circle K with the knife.
Right, thanks. Dr. Flynn?
Yeah, so collision reports, there was 46 collisions during January, 19 of them on the east side, 11 on the west side, 16 in parking lots, and 9 of them were failed remain collisions, and about half of them were handled by our collision reporting center, and half of them handled by our officers on the road. And you'll see similar numbers from the previous month in December and from the same time last year. Moving on to community services, Jason was very busy again. He was assisting the city in some of the Hockey Day in Canada preparations, also getting ready for the Special Olympics Ontario Polar Plunge that's going to be happening at Georgia College. Working with the Youngstown Legion on their bingo that they're setting up in January and February. Various meetings that he attended, the Grey Bruce Local Immigration Partnership, Alpha Street Resource Center, the Policing Initiative, the Provincial Committee, and several presentations, including Georgian College, St. Mary's Careers class, Notre Dame Social Media Awareness and Internet Safety, Hillcrest with Social Media Awareness and Internet Safety, and also on the Sound Citizen or Police Citizens Academy. And you'll see some of the pictures there. It was the funeral of OPP Constable Chella that our officers attended. CSO presentation at Notre Dame School, and the Georgia College welcome. And on to lost hours in training. We had 10 full-time members report sick or injured during January. A total of 49 shifts and 465 hours. We have 3 members on WSIB for a total of 164 hours. We have 2 members on LTE, 1 member is on WSIB, and on a modified plan, 2 or modified work plan. For training, we have 2 of our new recruits are working with their coach officers. They will be until probably the end of March. All officers completed their block training, which included taser and defensive tactics. 2 Hanover police members also received this training. And 1 member attended the assist course, which is the applied suicide intervention skills training course in Wyerton. And going on to frontline patrol, we had 182 highway traffic act charges in January, 55 compliance reports, 144 cautions, 72 criminal code charges, 124 other POA or bylaw. Those will mostly be the overnight snow parking bylaw, and 132 hours of foot patrol. And those are separate from what Inspector Bishop had mentioned with the Corps putting in 109 hours, and then we had an additional 132 hours with our platoons and our part-time officers. So over the last 2 weeks, we've had 2 robberies occur in the downtown. One was at a convenience store, and strangely, it was the same platoon that dealt with both robberies, Sergeant Matheson's platoon. In the first one with the store, Corps unit was instrumental in intercepting the person who committed the robbery. They were on foot patrol at the time in the downtown, and also managed to recover the property that was stolen and locate the knife that was used in the robbery. And a few days ago, we had, unfortunately, a bank robbery downtown, which thankfully they're rare here, but the last one occurred almost exactly 3 years ago. But again, the same platoon was involved, and approximately 3 hours after the robbery occurred, they were able to locate the person responsible and recover all the money that was stolen, and seize the evidence. So some really good success there. There are unfortunate incidents that happened in Old Sound, but a good conclusion to them, because a lot of the time with robberies, if you don't catch the person responsible, they're going to happen again because they've had success with it. So good conclusion to those investigations.
Some great work by the investigating officers, starting right from the quarterback, with the the sergeant who's running the platoon, to the CIB who's coming to assist, and great results and pretty impressive.
Same results our last bank robbery.
Yeah.
3 years ago too.
Yeah. Rest of that day.
Probably right around the same amount of time. You got about 3 hours after you did bank robbery.
It's in the same apartment building?
For ride, we had 25 on-duty ride checks with 1,252 drivers checked, 1 breath test administered, 9 HDA charges or warnings issued, and 2 other POA charges or warnings, and 1 impaired driving charge was laid. And that concludes my reports.
Thank you, Inspector. We have any reports from
Yeah.
Board bylaws. So not much to see there. We had 4 taxis either getting new licenses or renewals and 1 added to the candidate license, which is consistent with sort of year in terms of what we do with that. Court report, 1,148 hours of special constable time, and the number of custodies and transports here. Number for the special constable hours going up slightly, but that's reflective of courts returning to a little bit of normal operations where they are starting to hear more in-person trials and that sort of thing, although it's still a split right now where a number of them are still being done remotely, but they're starting to get back a little bit more to reopening the courts with some extra requirements on us in terms of the number of hours, because we're also still running first appearances of the cell block here. And it's that whole thing that came from COVID. We're now operating out of 2 different locations to try and do the same thing. So I'm hoping at some point we return a little bit more normal down the road. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. In terms of records, we did 8,229 bulk searches. You'll notice year over year, January tends to be a little less than what we normally do. And part of that is due to a week or so of Christmas holidays that basically all of the businesses that take in these requests, we end up servicing are shut down, and it reduces the numbers. We also had fewer doing them here just as a result of some scheduling and some cell block monitors and that sort of thing. We didn't have as many people doing them, but a lot of it's caused by the first week or two. It's generally slow with respect to the numbers that are sitting in the queue for us to do with the office. That is Director Feeney's.
We into well, last
So during the month of January, we had 1,499 calls for service. That's up quite a bit from the same time last year when we had 1,223, and it marks that trend that we saw at the end of 2022 continues on, except this month we have almost 17% increase in calls for service, which is very significant.
That's a huge increase. I think it was almost 7%.
Yeah, almost 8, I think.
Year.
It's really. On to look from Director Hill.
I can look after that. So they assisted city IT and Nolan Sound Fire Department and part of the new radio system over at the fire hall. They entered and did all the staff schedules for 2023 with Director Feeney, who did a lot of that work. Arranged for the cell phone for our IDEN, for our new digital evidence management pilot project that should be starting soon. Migration of the new phone system for more extensions as we switch over from our old phone system to our new phone system with NG911. And NG911 for the alternate dispatch sites they're completing the upgrade. They worked with the Bell and other vendors to make sure that everything was working up there. They did some test calls. They should be live by the end of February. And then start the training up there at the backup center. They did some updating for our new vehicles, to the new vehicles, conference system, the public meeting rooms. You can see the technology from our meeting and how thin my hair is getting. And as well, the annual supervisors conference and business planning meetings. Some work for West Gray as well. Some new equipment. So that was the IT report.
Thanks, Judy. On to item number 16, financial reports.
So our financial coordinator is absent on leave, and we're making some arrangements to fill that role. But in the interim, the financial wrap up for 2022. The bottom line should be that we're approximately $140,000 over expense. Our expenses are over by approximately $140,000 from our budget. But we'll take that with the city. That's the first time we've been over a number of years now. So, but that's a couple of things. The significant variances were $60,000 in course security. It was cost of variance and the number of overtime hours in the comm center, working with dispatch and trying to fill the need. We had a shortage of people and getting people in the door, but we are getting some success on that and a big increase in staffing hours in the budget for next year. So that should be an issue. But we'll get the final numbers to you when they're complete through the city.
Yeah, I think this is the first year that we remember that it's been a deficit. You're right. Normally it's we're about 300,000 over or under budget, but then not money's all been, I guess, technically given back to the city, but it's still a fair amount of money that we didn't spend, and it's sure some of the results of the core and costs and other things increase the costs, but it's all the money well spent.
One of the things I would say is that every year we're trying to budget closer to the actual costs and reduce that. We don't want to be over budget at the end of the year. We'd rather not take money from the tax system and not use it. So the direction that we've had each year is to make it tighter. Before is a more accurate budget. I think we're getting to that point as I've been here a number of years now.
All right, moving on to operating reports. So,
Yeah, my activities report, I was sick for half a day earlier in the month. I attended all the in-service training for the members and did an interactive time with everybody in the police service. Came in for, I think there were about 6 or 7 different days that came in early and met with all the members and just a quick update on what's going on and improve that communication flow. So that was very valuable. Took part in a number of days of business planning sessions, the introduction of the Citizens Police Academy, meeting with Mo Ecuadon, doing working group. It's really difficult to say how much time days have been spent doing the financial coordinators role. It's 20 minutes here, half an hour there, an hour there. So, but it's been significant during that absence. I met with the new executive director from Safe and Sound and talked about some opportunities working with them. I also attended the sergeant leadership team training days that we held in the afternoon sessions of the board planning, and went over some expectations, some fruit bets as well in communications. Met with the OPP Grey Bruce inspector Paul Richardson a couple hours. A significant number of hours was spent on Solicitor General's NG911 grant, and as well budget preparation and finalizing last year's budget to work, and then court security, community drugs and alcohol, some of the regular committee meetings I attend, and did a session with Jason Granny on Rogers TV and politically speaking.
Actually, I think I watched one of those. Very good. And we move on to annual reports.
So I'll turn it over to the people who are making the wheels turn. So Jeff, go ahead.
It's quite a lengthy report. I'll try to be as brief as I can, but I know you're very interested in issues to do with the facility. And so the first item, March of 2022, this came about. City facilities manager at the time, who's now left, presented us with a service level agreement that they wanted us to enter into with regard to service being done at the building. We did not enter into this agreement. The agreement spoke of city staff supporting police staff and the development of skills, knowledge, and abilities in the area of troubleshooting, maintenance, and repairs at the facility. So our staff, which is a minimum levels of staffing to provide the core functions, the management of police service, we do not have time to work on repairs at the facility and maintenance. And that was partly, that was the main reason we didn't enter into this agreement. That agreement got put to the side. However, I will note that the service level by the facility staff increased substantially in 2022. There was a good working relationship with those staff. There was a quicker response to issues in the facility, and also a bit of work to improve the interior facility staff, starting to repaint some of the areas downstairs and helping us get some of our offices that are starting to look a little bit worn, getting them back up to snuff. The police facility audits. So this was supposed to occur last year. It didn't happen prior to in 2021. It didn't happen. October 31st, 2022, the entire facility was toured by senior police management, the facility supervisors with the city, and also consultant and architect Grant Deemer. He's familiar with the facility through managing previous renovations. A number of issues were identified during that tour as being either deficient, broken, or near an end of life. We've requested a copy of Grant Deemer's report from the city. However, we're told that report is not complete yet, so we're anxiously waiting that before a schedule to improve some of the things in the building and improve them for staff. One of the things that was identified on that tour that was actually worse than what we originally thought was the brickwork on the roof of the building. It was found to be far worse than what we originally thought was. And so that's going to require some attention, and we're just looking at how we can tackle that so that the things don't get worse out there. Already were. Fire suppression in September 2020, it was identified that current fire suppression system should be changed. In the server rooms at the station, that fire suppression system would cause more damage rather than prevent more damage because it was a water system. City facilities staff were asked to look for a replacement with a chemical suppression system, and in January last month, the work started on the upstairs and downstairs fire suppression systems by Georgian Bay Fire and Safety, and that work is still ongoing, not yet complete. Parking gates had remained in a non-functioning state through 2019, 2020, and 2021. We eventually replaced those gates through lease budget in September of 2022. They are now operating. The floor and dispatch and records health and safety issue was raised in July 2021 with regards to a whole floor in the dispatch area that there was a Band-Aid solution applied at that time, but it's also known that the floor in records and dispatch was becoming quite worn and uneven. That was replaced in September of 2022. The floor in the communication center was not replaced, as we plan to have a communication center hopefully later in 2023. And that existing room downstairs will be looked at as to what we're going to do with it as far as renovation and repurposing. Talked about the brickwork, the state of that. It was also identified on January 4th we've had some ongoing leaks from the roof. Part of it is from a penthouse maintenance area. When we get driving rain against the north wall of this room, it's been determined that we have to install cladding on the exterior of that small building, so that's supposed to be happening in the heating and cooling continues to be an issue. On August 8th, 2022, there were several what appeared to be leaks observed on the ceiling tiles of several rooms on the second floor of the building. The stained ceiling tiles, which had to be later replaced by facility staff. What appeared to be a leak was actually water dripping from pipes that were sweating. And properly functioning heating and cooling system during higher temperatures than normal. The HVAC contractor was required to attend and repair the system, and this was also included in the site assessment facility audit in October, and we're waiting on the report from that. The transformer unit at the back of the station, which is rotting, they've put a piece of plywood against it to prevent salt from being thrown at it, to prevent further rot. This is the responsibility of Hydro One for the replacement of the unit, and there's no changes in 2022, and it remains there. Windows and doors in the building, it continues to be more and more evident that we have substantial heat loss and also heat coming through those windows in the summertime. Seeing the ongoing deterioration of the molding around those windows, where we can actually see the inside through the edges of the windows, and that's also going to be assessed in the facility audit. When the dispatch center, new communication center is being built, the windows will be replaced in that area during that time. No changes with the elevator. It remains unpredictable. It is currently working, but the system in that is very old and will require to be replaced hopefully in the near future. As far as cleaning, janitorial services have been very, very good. There's no complaints at all. That concludes the building report.
Thanks, Jeff. Any questions from any members of the board? You said the facilities audit was completed with this November.
Yeah, at the end of October.
Any guesstimate?
No, we contacted the city because it's their facility, and report is being they're having Grant Teamer do the report for them, and they still have this.
Maybe when that report's finally available,
It'll come forward.
have the city make a presentation here. Or whoever does whoever's responsible for the audit will take ownership of it.
I think it's a good idea. I do have a question. So when was the report, like when did you come here to do the report? How long ago was that?
The tour, so all of us toured the building, all the rooms in the building, identifying the issues, and that was right at the end of October 2022. We've been waiting quite a long time. Is that
Yes.
2 years?
2 years to get to that point,
Yeah.
so at least there's some progress, and then hopefully speaking with the new person responsible to the city, and they anticipate that when the report's done, they'll come and make a presentation to the board.
So we're about 3 months out.
Yeah, it's gonna highlight priorities on all the projects and what has to be done first and what's most immediate area of concern. As Jeff said, the brickwork was supposed to be replaced in 2020. It was changed because of COVID, but then I think its priorities moved right up the ladder as a result of some of the things that we're seeing during the tour by the architect.
That is the same architect that we awaiting the conservation work as well.
Just that one architect contaminant.
It was the only one that they were able to find that would even put a bid in or even respond to email at the time. So,
He's been the one who's been involved in the previous renovations here as well.
We're gonna do next item.
So the annual firearms report. So we took possession of 12 firearms in 2022. 4 were rifles, 5 shotguns, and 3 handguns. Of the 12 firearms received, 6 were surrendered for destruction and 6 were held for criminal matters. We currently have 67 firearms in our possession. 27 rifles, 27 shotguns, and 13 handguns. 5 firearms from 2019 were returned to a third party after appropriate firearms transfers occurred once court matters were concluded. All required reports have been submitted to the Provincial Weapons Enforcement Unit and the RCMP.
Joint Forces operations. So we typically, what I've explained before, the reporting requirement for Joint Forces operations often refers to something that's on a little bit higher level than what we typically do here, but we sort of elaborate a number of working relationships that we have. So typically a joint force operation is more so a formalized memorandum of understanding agreement that differs with bigger service complex investigation. So we continue to have an excellent working relationship with our area policing partners, and we do actually work hand in hand with them on a pretty regular basis. Anytime that we have investigation that tends to go outside of our borders, we're typically working with Musgrave, Saugeen Shores, and Hanover on a lot of those things. We also do some, we've talked to you before about the technical investigations that we do and our capacity to do that, which was brought in from a grant. So the grant that supported that involved all of those services. So we continue to do or offer through Constable Houston and our CIB unit GPS trackers, cell phone analysis, and covert video surveillance options. So in March of 2024, we assisted the OPP with the execution of the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act search warrant. It was the OPP's warrant. We assisted within our city boundaries, a small amount of cocaine and unknown blue powder seized by police for further examination. And that was OPP's case. That search warrant was part of multiple search warrants that were done in both Grey and Bruce counties under the OPP's Project Patty, which targeted a high-level drug trafficker. And the overall project seized approximately $82,000 worth of drugs all told, as well as a number of other items, which included 3 vehicles and 2 .22 caliber rifles. A 60-year-old male from Barrie was charged with respect to that one. We utilized the OPP, basically kind of a joint force operation back in July when a 38-year-old female drove her car into Georgian Bay and was deceased as a result of that. So because there's a little bit of a split between water rights policing and the background of that investigation occurred within the city of Owen Sound, we kind of split up the roles that we did with respect to that investigation. So we looked after the underwater recovery. We looked after the investigation portion that dealt with the circumstances leading up to that death. It was deemed to be a drowning or death consistent with drowning after the autopsy. We dealt with a case that came to us from the RCMP back in August that was the German authorities looking into the exportation of ecstasy from their end. They had arrested men from the Netherlands, found to be in possession of a parcel that contained 10 ecstasy pills, but the destination address was in Owen Sound. So some follow-up was done here as a result for their investigations. Destination. CBSA contacted us also in August regarding intercepting 2 packages that were being imported from Florida. They contained sort of 4 prohibited devices, which were 33 round 9mm magazines and two 50 round 9mm magazines designed for a Glock style firearm. Those packages were being imported to a local address here. Two suspects were arrested, search warrants executed at two Lone Sound addresses. Two male parties were charged with offenses related to the importing of firearms devices. And there was also some drug-related charges laid in that as well. In July, we initiated an investigation through our drug enforcement unit, and we had some assistance from the West Grey and Saugeen Shores Police Service. In late September, 22-year-old Brampton man was arrested by police outside of town, found to be in possession of approximately half a pound of fentanyl, which is a huge amount of fentanyl, particularly in the area here. 4 ounces of methamphetamine, street value approximately $108,000, $3,000 in cash, and charged with numerous drug possession proceeds of crime offenses. Again, that's just an example of sort of the regular work that happens regularly between our local municipal services here whenever assistance is required. Then I believe a final event on there is we reported to you before on Project Winter, which was occurred over about 10 days in early December. This was a project that was conducted in partnership with the Criminal Investigation Service in Ontario. We were able to fund they provide funding for localized projects like that. 2-week project resulted in 5 individuals being charged with 21 offenses. This was targeting drug traffickers and seizure of over $8,000 worth of illicit drugs as a result of that project. And as I mentioned before, just now, this person in that group has just been rounded up, so that is now concluded. Report.
Inspector. You know, to see what fixed asset.
Yeah, this is report just consists of a list of what's various computer components that were disposed of through recycling. We're required to report on that.
Staffing report.
Yeah, so there were, I won't go through the whole list, but this is a list of all the ins and outs, new hires last year, and as well, everybody that left the transferred or left throughout the year. You can see there are a number of new hires, number of changes, number of people through dispatch who trained and left, or trained and moved to other things, which affected our ability to staff properly throughout the year. Subject to any questions, it's just yeah.
Any questions from anyone? It looks like there's more new hires than there was people retiring, but just trying to fill the spaces we have.
Some of the people moved in, transferred to other roles in the service. So yeah, they're probably work.
Any other reports?
Yeah, annual report for the use of force.
All right, so we're required to make an annual report to the board on the use of force by the police service members. And it's a requirement under regulation 926 of the Police Services Act. When a member draws a handgun in the presence of a member of the public, excluding a member of the police force who is on duty, points a firearm at a person, discharges a firearm, uses a weapon other than a firearm on another person, uses physical force on another person that results in injury requiring medical attention, and they're required to do a report. So in 2022, there were 42 reports, and just touching on some of them, there was 7 taser deployments compared to 2 the year before. 14 incidents where a taser was displayed compared to 12 the year before. 3 incidents where firearms were drawn in public compared to 2 in the year before. 2 incidents of firearms being pointed to effect arrest, and that was the same the year before. And 18 incidents where firearms were discharged to dispatch a sick or injured animal. That's compared to one the prior year. With the animals, that goes in cycles with the different diseases that the animals get. And we'll have, some years we'll have dramatic increases in the number of animals that have to be dispatched compared to other years. So distemper and whatnot that goes through there. And that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at to see if there's another option that we can do, or another service that can respond to those types of calls, because we go to a lot of it.
A lot of paperwork associated with them.
It looks like a significant increase from 2021 to 2022, but the majority of those are all related to animal things. I go through the court security plan. So annual report on court security. The ministry put in a new security camera system at the courts in 2019, but they're still continuing to have issues and problems. And they've had to do some work on that. They're continuing to do work on that. They continue to upgrade the paging system within the courthouse. They put in a phone at the front door screening location. Number of matters resumed in trial matters in person. For most first appearance, the case management courts still remain virtual, and all the prisoner remands, things are happening from video from the police station as opposed to transporting up to the courthouse again. So that's maintained since COVID started. There are some prisoners coming into the courthouse for trials and bails, depending on the judiciary and whether they want them. So that's starting to increase. Throughout, they continue to provide security to the courthouse, guard prisoners, and virtual bail hearings. There were no attempts of escape or escapes in 2022. And Director Flooney chairs the court security committee and also sits at the local justice committee, and I do that as I attend both of those as well. The independent transport unit continues to provide services and transportation from the courts to provincial lockup facilities, and that's the highlights of that report.
Thank you. Any questions? Moving on to other items of new business, and I just wanted to add a couple of items of my own before we move on to meeting day. And one of the ones is we've had a request from an individual who had renewed the tax license for 2023. We did that in December. Unfortunately, wasn't able to health reason, wasn't able to drive or isn't able to drive a taxi for 2023, and the gentleman has asked to have his renewal fee reimbursed to him. And I think because this is a health issue, it's not that he's decided to be a change of heart or change of money, doesn't want to drive, didn't have a choice, it was a medical issue. So any comments around the room regarding the refund amount, registration? Should we consider it?
I think we should, I think it's appropriate, given the circumstances. Prorating such a request, I think is appropriate, so we actually, in this instance, that would be all of the.
Yes, of course.
I take a motion.
Yeah. Okay. Right, and just one other item. Oh, all in favor, I'm sorry. Thank you. Probably, they're off script. Sorry. Well, that's all perfectly all right. Just another thing is a group at the Zone 5, the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards, and reviewing their all of the board websites of that zone. And there is a number of changes coming as a result of the State Policing Act. And it's probably a good thing that we take a look at our website to determine what we're missing. I think we're in pretty good shape, but there are a few areas that we should consider adding information to it. So I thought maybe what we could do is that we could form some type of community group, whatever you want to call it, and we can then take a look at the website and maybe go back to the board and actually we'll make with recommendations on what should be added and what should be deleted. I guess calling for volunteers, for everyone to sit on that committee, review the website. I don't think it would be a big ordeal. It would just be a matter of taking what we've got, taking what we should have, seeing what the difference is, and I think we can do the staff in-house that changes. We just have to provide them with the content. John, thank you. You know, it's a volunteer all the way. Is that volunteer? I'm not sure. All right. And should we have anything else, or is one from now? Getting nuts. Okay. Right. I don't think we need a motion for that. Right, moving on to the item regarding board meeting date changes. We've got a couple of meetings coming up before we used to conflict for some of the board members and staff. And I guess the first one is the March meeting. It's scheduled for Wednesday, March the 29th. And I won't be here that day. And I'm wondering if we might move that meeting to Monday the 27th. Does that make sense, or do you want to meet? 27th is good.
Fine.
Then for our April meeting, it's supposed to be held on, it's scheduled to be held on April 26th. I'm suggesting we just cancel that meeting in 2023. We're only required to have 4 meetings a year. And the issues we have with that meeting, that date, that month, is I won't be here, nor will your executive assistant be here. So, everyone can change it. I could suggest that I could do it by Zoom, however, I don't think I want to suggest that Kayla do it by Zoom. And it's probably good that you have a mask on so you can't show us how you feel.
Which one was?
People. And then lastly, the June meeting is scheduled for 28th. And the chief was on holidays, on vacation that day. And suggestion was to move the meeting to July 5th. No? Kayla's gonna be strange.
I thought we were moving it. There was a day that the chief was back before, like the week before, or.
Oh, okay, could be. I think probably
Not back to the first.
at the time, that's right.
Oh, that's the second.
The 15th?
What's that?
Was it the 15th?
Yeah, it was the 15th of June.
Is it 15?
What months?
June. Because there was,
That's good.
No. That gives us 1, 2, 3 weeks from our May meeting, and what impact does that have on preparing reports? Anyways, I just didn't want to backing you guys up.
So it's either June the 15th or July.
Yeah, July. July 1st and Saturday's vacation.
That work?
Just as everybody holidays the first week of June.
We can cover, we can cover for
No,
each other. We can
second one,
cover,
yeah, exactly.
we can cover for each other. I'll be right. Well, so that's not, this side's not bad. This side.
So July 5th it is then?
Sure.
Right. I don't think we need a motion to.
We should update the website.
Yes, and the website will get that one. And we need to send out invites for people's calendars electronic.
Just notice, John, this month won't occur for the next 300 and so many years, but there are 5 of every day in this month, 5 Mondays, 5 Tuesdays, 5 Wednesdays, 4 Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays.
Oh,
4 days, yeah. Won't happen again,
well,
4 of every day.
something new to happen. Right. Any other items for new business? Hearing none, I shall terminate the meeting at 11:50. Sorry, 11:50.